while on the theme of the idea of the pardes in the Torah, which means the Torah is orchard, literally, and referring to the acronym, which is Pshat, Remesh, Drush, and Sod, the four levels of the Torah's interpretation. And of course, there's much more than that. These are just the four general levels. The Torah is multi-leveled. There's a wonderful explanation of the Khatam Sofer in this respect, which I think gives a lot of insight to all of these discussions of the Parsha, not only ours. There's a Greek translation of the Torah. It's referred to as the Septuagint, and the Septuagint is connected to the number 70 because it was made by 70 Jewish elders who were coerced by Ptolemy to translate the Torah to Greek. And although it is no longer practiced, the day associated with that translation, perhaps its completion and so on, there's a certain day of the year, it's in the month of Tevet, that was declared as a fast. And the subject of the fast was this, if you will, tragedy that the Torah was translated into Greek. The Khatam Sofer asks the question, why was that such a bad thing? What happened when the Torah was translated into Greek? He explains that the Torah is not a book. The Torah is an organism, and the sign of its godly source is the fact that it has infinite dimensions, new meanings being discovered all the time, generally summed up in these four levels of Peshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. And so the multi-dimensional aspect of the Torah is what inspires the person and keeps him connected with the true source of spirituality in the Torah, and bonds him with the giver of the Torah in a way that you don't feel a bond when you read a book. As we know, anyone who has done translations of any kind, when you translate something, you have to commit yourself to a certain meaning. The Torah in the original doesn't have that sense of limitedness. You read it in Hebrew, and all those meanings are there until you start to discuss it. And then you go to individual meanings. And therefore, he says, the translation means to settle for one meaning in the Torah. When you read that translation, there's no longer the multidimensional quality. He says, and that was what was so sad about it. So I hope that will be brought out in today's class as well, but there will be an element of suspense in which we will not know until the end. We will work backwards to see how it all fits into our parsha. But indeed, I have not fulfilled my promise because I didn't say at the very beginning what exactly this lecture is going to be about. I have not said the vets. So here is the vets, the thing now. We are going to discover that since the purpose of the world's creation was that people in general, and the people of Israel in specific, with their unique God-given mission, as stated in the Torah, should fulfill God's commandments, and as such, make the world a place which is inhabitable for God's holy presence. And the world as a lower level, a material world, which conceals God's presence, only does such to present the challenge that we should reveal godliness in the world by using the material world as instruments in the fulfillment of God's will, which are the commandments, so that the commandments are the given in universe's existence, and the material universe is a secondary aspect to that spiritual goal, created in order to enable this spiritual existence. And as such, the physical world's existence is actually conditional upon the world in general and Israel in specific fulfilling its purpose through the keeping of the commandments of the Torah. And what this means is that the world cannot be an obstacle to the fulfillment of God's commandments. It must concede to the Jew to allow him to keep the Shabbat, to allow him to keep kosher, to allow him or her to pray, to keep our festivals, to put on tefillin, and so on. Because it is not the world that is the master over the Torah, but the Torah that is the master over the world. And those who keep it become invested with this power and are thus able to be the dominant force rather than being limited by worldly forces and restricted by worldly limitations. We actually, if we have the correct conviction and move forward, we see that these obstacles indeed disappear and that the fulfillment of God's will in the world, far from being difficult or impossible, in fact, is very doable and very realistic.